name is Steve Light from Leading Light TV. My special guest today is Joe Hoare, and I met Joe about 5 years ago at one of my Leading Light events, and he run like this awesome laughter therapy workshop, and I remember Ruby Wax being there as well, and everyone just joining in, and it really lightened the whole atmosphere of the event. And yeah, so welcome, Joe. Thanks for joining me today. How are you doing today, mate?
I'm good, thanks, Steve. Very nice to be having this chat with you. And I remember that event extremely well, actually. And it was fantastic. It was fantastic seeing everybody just progressively open up and connect, because that, to me, is what it's all about.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So I remember that event well and with fond memories.
Yes, I wanted to start off... we'll talk about your work shortly, but I wanted to find out, how things were for you in the past. Really, you said you stuff. I can't even say it. You suffered with a stutter, and you had. Can you relate to like social anxiety and low self-esteem and depression? What was it like for you in the past?
It was hell. Actually, that's just it was. I had really difficult moments, really difficult times, and I feel that. Now I feel I've come through it, you see. And there's a wonderful quote, I think it's a Louise Hay quote, along the lines of that people who've suffered, or she finds people who've have suffered and have been through hard times are much sort of kinder and more compassionate. And I definitely sort of feel that, because I look at people sort of going through sort of this, that, and the other in their life, and I think, been there, I know that one. And there's something about going through this stuff and coming out the other side. So I feel I've earned my stripes, you see. So nowadays, as much as possible, I spend life and I spend time celebrating, because when things aren't actually going belly up, as far as I can see, the best thing to do is to really enjoy the moment. But yes, I do find that having been through it myself, that I can be fantastically, I can be so endlessly patient, and there for people who are who are still going through it. Yeah.
So you laughed about the question. So you haven't got any attachment to it now, then, because you know it was hell before, but then now you're laughing about it. Do you think that's a good thing?
Now what I find is that if something crops up that needs dealing with, I'll deal with it, right? But if there isn't anything in particular that needs dealing with, well, I'll just turn up and live. And go out and do this, that, and the other. So no, I happen to love quotes, and there's a quote of the Dalai Lama's, which is, "Pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional." Right? Yeah. You see, when you and I find in my own life, when I finally ditched the suffering bit, right? That changed everything, really. Because it just mean occasionally there are these things like heartbreak and what have you come along. Well, they come along and you just deal with it. But it's the difference between dealing with it and making a whole story out of it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean by that. For a very long time, I held on to my story and had kept that as the reason why I wasn't moving forward. That my story was me, and I'm allowed to moan about it and feel sorry for myself. And I realised that didn't really help at all.
No, and we all do it. But the thing to do is, that if you find you're doing it, well, just well, you can then decide whether you're going to carry on doing it or whether you're going to do something else. But blue moments, moments when it all feels, you think, oh my God, what's going on? That's just part of being alive. But it's in terms of sort of peace of mind and enjoying life, it's good not to make a drama out of it. And that partly comes with experience. I'm sure sort of you find, once you've been through it a few times, you get this sense of, it's this again. It's kind of sort of this again. I know this. This is a bit of sort of this. Okay, I'll just sort of, and then you get that sort of degree of, to what extent you want to choose to engage with it or no. Or there is something that actually needs sort of addressing there and then, or whether it's just kind of, an echo from the past or something. Having been through it gives you a sense of perspective, does it not?
Oh, definitely, yeah. It really does, and like you said, it gives you empathy towards other people, because
absolutely,
people who haven't been through it just kind of tell you to get on with it, and
they have no idea. They have absolutely. One of the most rewarding groups of people I find to work with are people who have been through it. You see, because when you then say, let's play a game like let's pretend it's great to be alive, for example. For people who've been through it, they know exactly what you mean. But people who haven't been through it, well, in a funny kind of way, I almost feel slightly sorry for people who haven't really been through it, because until you've really been through it, you have no idea what you're capable of. And people I find are infinitely more resourceful than they tend to realise. We all are, but it's not until we're really stretched, we really sort of go to the edge, that we find out just how resourceful we actually are. And that's a fine thing. So I'd never wish, sort of hard stuff on anyone. But there's a kind of thing with a child, isn't it? You don't want your child to be ill, right? But you do know that by being ill, they develop all these antibodies and they become a healthier, more robust person on the back of it. It's that kind of thing.
Yeah. So when did things start to really change for the better then? What did you have, like a epiphany moment, or like did you hit rock bottom and you knew that you had to change things, or how did it work?
The second time I hit rock bottom, the first time was after sort of student years, when I decided life wasn't worth living, and I tried very hard to end it. And then I got over that. And then about sort of 15 years later, I had a bout of insomnia. And anybody who's had insomnia knows it's hell, and your whole life sort of comes a bit unstitched. And when I finally sort of got through that, I thought to myself, there simply has to be a better way. Because I realised I knew nothing about things like relaxation techniques and all that kind of thing. And I just didn't know how to discharge all the tension I was experiencing. And once I'd sort of got back into some reasonable kind of sleeping pattern, I vowed to myself, never again. So I became very interested in any kind of technique that was going to help discharge tension. And it started with sort of physical relaxation, but then I had a sort of a healing, a heart-opening sort of healing epiphany moment, and I go, oh my God! So that's what it's all about, which was sort of fantastically sort of liberating, and then a sort of free your natural voice moment, and then combined all that into a stress management program, and as part of that, I then discovered all this sort of healing power of laughter bit. And you probably had the experience too, when you come across something at some point in your life, and part of you just says yes. Part of your being just knows that that's the right thing for you. And that's how that was. That happened about sort of 15, 16, 17 years ago.
Wow. So then you started to learn this stuff, and this is the kind of work you do now, isn't it? Tell me a bit about what you're doing, and you've recently got a book about all this kind of stuff, and it's called Awakening the Laughing Buddha. So do you want to tell us a bit about your work and the book?
I came to realise that I came to experience the truth of a lot of the kinds of sayings that sort of go round that we hear, like so what you focus on expands, for example. Now, we've probably all heard that one, and I've absolutely, totally found that to be true. In my sort of particular case, the more I focused on awakening the laughing Buddha within, on sort of laughter yoga and natural laughter skills, and basically sort of staying upbeat in a crazy world, the more I found it impacted my day-to-day life in very sort of tangible ways, like sort of there was a decrease in early morning grumpiness, for example, and absolutely sort of an increase in what sort of the Barefoot Doctrine and in the Taoist tradition is known as laughter readiness. Right, by being sort of ready to engage with the world and sort of life around you in that in an upbeat way. And the practices actually, I love simple practices because simple practices are easy to do. And they're easy to keep on doing, so they tend to be sort of easy to, they're naturally sort of self-motivating. And little things like just remembering to breathe and remembering to smile, right, and occasionally remembering to stretch, and all these things that help us get out of our heads into our sort of fuller consciousness. And that, so actually the steps themselves are incredibly simple. The tricky thing is just remembering to do them initially so long enough so they do actually sort of rewire our brains.
Yeah.
But I'm sure you find all this kind of thing yourself.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, I definitely agree with doing the simple things, because we always try, well, me anyway, try and follow complicated processes of change, and you just end up getting even more stressed out and annoyed than you were before, because you're trying to figure something out.
Yes, I know. That's why the first step in probably absolutely nowadays, absolutely every session that I run, I talk to people about the power of the smile, right? And just how much it influences and colours your life. It's not a kind of sort of the kind of smile that's sort of gone within half a second. But it's being able to maintain a genuine good-natured smile for, say, 10 to 15 seconds, right? And if you do that, and particularly early in the morning, you're doing a number of things. One, you'll find it when you come to do that, to experiment with it, that it requires a little bit of what the Dalai Lama would call effort. It requires you to, you can't just sort of physically do it, otherwise it'll just become a grimace. You have to put a little bit of intention into it as well, you see. Yeah. And that turns out to be fantastically empowering. It's like putting a definite positive stamp. And when you do that sort of first thing in the morning, early in the day, like, when you're in front of the mirror, with your toothbrush, instead of just going sort of straight ahead with it, just stick it in your teeth, and hold it like that for 10 to 15 seconds. And tiny steps like that, the whole thing is start your day well. When you take a positive, proactive step like that, it can then sort of colour the whole of the rest of your day. So I love these simple steps.
That's fantastic.
They're the ones that people respond best to, actually. I don't have it sort of at the hand, but I've had sort of feedback from people how by just doing that smiling exercise, particularly when they do it sort of, start your day well, live well, end your day well. So they do it sort of in the middle of the day and the end of the day as well. How for some people that little exercise just it has reframed people's lives.
Yeah, that's the power of it, isn't it? And what you're saying about the smile thing, I used to find it hard to smile and used to do the forced thing, and it doesn't. I know what you mean. You have to feel it as well, rather than just doing it, because, like you say, it just looks false, and you need to genuinely feel it. And I guess how would you say, if you're telling someone to try this, how would you say that how would they get the feeling inside?
There are two ways that, in particular, that I talk about. One actually relates to an experiment that was done in 1988, where a group was split into two, and they were given a pencil. One group was asked to hold the pencil in their teeth like this, and the other group was asked to hold the pencil in their lips like this. And so with their pencils in those respective positions, they were then shown exactly the same series of they were sort of Garfield cartoons, and the group that had the pencil in their teeth found those same cartoons much funnier than the group that had the pencil in their lips, and that was because their face was being held in the position of a smile, even though they didn't realize it was in the position of a smile. So you can use props, right?
Wow.
That's like the whole toothbrush thing. And I actually was in a training meeting once, and someone came up and said that they were a coach. And when they're off, when they're in the cars or driving off sort of between clients, they stick the pencil in their teeth. So they're driving like this. So that when they reach their next client, they are feeling, perky and chipper. So that's one way. The other way is if you're a naturally fairly experiential person, and you can bring your willingness to bear, then you can just smile, right? And you find if you keep your willingness sort of present, then it's easy to keep a smile going. Some people though find it easier to use if you like, the power of their mind. Right, so they either sort of remember something funny, or they are anticipating something happening, so they actually sort of engage their thinking process in it to help keep that smile genuine. So you can either just do it, right, or you can use a prop, or you can use your imagination or your memory. But the thing is to do it. You see.
Awesome. Have to give it a go. So, so about your book, in just a short overview, what is the book about?
The book is about, the heart of the book is is how to stay upbeat and positive in this crazy life of ours. Right? And it's partly a story, it's partly a guide, it's partly sort of science and medicine. There's a little bit of ancient history, because we aren't the first ones to be sort of using these kinds of approaches to help make life a more rewarding experience. And there's a manual as well. There's 8 chapters, and there's an exercise. There are 2 exercises for each chapter. One, a kind of sort of natural laughter skills, laughter yoga style exercise. And then the other is the Taoist a style exercise. So one of the exercises are from me, and one of the exercises are from Stephen, the Barefoot Doctor. And the idea of the book is to help encourage people to take and to keep taking sort of little steps to help build a positive lifestyle for themselves. That's actually what it is. So it's about promoting health, well-being, and happiness, right? And using the combination of sort of Taoist insights with the healing power of laughter insights. And in the Taoist tradition, what I didn't realize until I read sort of Stephen's intro was at the heart of the Taoist tradition is this thing called laughter readiness. Right, being ready to respond to the world in an upbeat way. And the more we do that, then first of all, the more we will then respond to the world in an upbeat way. But the better our relationships will be. The more little moments we'll experience in life. So it's about helping make this experience of being alive as good as it can be, Steve. That's what it's about.
That sounds good to me. What would you say to anyone who's slightly cynical about that, spiritual kind of things, and may think it's too silly or whatever? What would you say to those kind of people listening to this?
Well, first of all, there's another quote, and it was from Caroline Miss, and she said she would never, ever recommend that anybody start on the spiritual path, right? But if you do start, she'd recommend you never stop. Right? So of course, it's up to us. We decide, we choose what path we want to go down, right? And I'm an absolute sort of proponent of the idea that it's the wrong approach is to think we should do something. Right? Yeah. The right approach is to find something that we do feel naturally drawn to. So if it doesn't sort of resonate, fine. It might not be the right thing at the right time and all that kind of thing. If there's even a vague little bit of curiosity about it, though, I'd say practice the power of the smile, right? Practice the power of the smile, a genuine, good-natured smile, 10 to 15 seconds, as early as possible in your day, and just be alert and be aware for how it impacts the rest of your day. Because ultimately, what motivates us, what keeps us going with these kinds of things, is when we ourselves then start having experiences that demonstrate that what we're doing makes a difference. It's fine to read about it and know that for thousands of years people are doing this, that and the other, and the medical science says it's going to do this, that and the other. That's all fantastic. But it's not really until we ourselves have an experience of it. And when we have an experience of it, we then know. And so my encouragement to people is to just, if they're remotely curious, just experiment, just play around with that smile exercise, right? Because you actually do it even before you get out of bed in the morning, right? And all it takes is 10 to 15 seconds, right? So as long as if you have to get up and do a half hour, I defy anyone, you see, to say they can't find 10 or 15 seconds in their day to smile. Right?
You can't be that
so I say,
really.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that really makes sense to me, because I imagine it now. If you start practicing it, you might think it's a bit silly, and then say after a short period of time, maybe a week or so, then you've remembered the feeling that you're getting in the morning. So as soon as you wake up, you start doing it, and then you'll feel good again. So there's no reason why you wouldn't do it, because you feel good.
Exactly. You touched on an incredibly important thing, which is the feeling, right?
Yeah.
after you've done it for a while, you can then, as they say, internalize it. You actually have a somatic experience. You can feel it in your body. Right? There's a feeling that goes with, as you know, that goes with a frame of mind. And what you're actually looking to make contact with is that feeling, the natural joyfulness, you see. And so it's not about the smiling per se, although that's wonderful, and it does. It's wonderful. But the smile actually is a gateway into your natural joyfulness. And of course, as you become sort of perkier, more upbeat, and this, that, the other, you are then emitting that vibe to people. You are, and people do find they have all kinds of little sort of sparky moments in their day-to-day life, just little connections, random connections. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and I can imagine, like, it, once you're feeling a bit more perky or whatever, people are treating you in a different way, then you're feeling better, and it's accumulative, isn't it? Because if you're feeling crap in the morning, you go to work and you're wondering why people are talking to you like crap, because you're talking to them like crap or whatever, and it just carries on like that, doesn't it? And just something so simple as doing the smile exercise, I can see how it could really change your whole day.
Yes.
But then going back to the simplicity thing, people will think, oh, this is far too simple to work. It's ridiculous. How can this work? And not even try it.
Yeah. Well, that's a choice. However, I would encourage people to give it a go.
Cool. So, well, that takes me on to the last question, really. I know you've probably answered it already, but what one piece of advice would you give anyone listening to this, if they're having, like, I don't know, issues with low self-esteem, anxiety, or whatever? What would you say to them? What one piece of advice would you give them?
The most important thing I would say is to get out of your head. Right? And so the smile is great. Being physical is great. Even just getting up and having a stretch and just moving around a little bit. Because so often, when we're going through a hard time, often we become more and more immobile.
Yeah.
Right. And so being active in some way, even if it's just sort of getting up and stretching, can start to break that pattern. But actually, the most important thing is something that you touched on sort of slightly obliquely, which is is that moment of awareness that you want to do something to break the pattern. Until you have that moment of awareness, we're just kind of lost in it. And so, sharpening up our antennae so that we are sort of aware as early as possible once we start feeling a bit this, that and the other. Once we're aware as early as possible that we want to do something to kind of to break that cycle, that's the key. It's the awareness that's the key. And on the back of the awareness, doesn't matter what you do, but being physical is wonderful. Doing facial yoga is wonderful, so the smiling exercise is great. Just one or two conscious breaths, deep conscious breaths. They can, once you realise, once you've twigged that you want to break the cycle, then it can be an incredibly small action. The first step can be really small. It can be a smile, it can be a stretch, it can be a breath, but it needs to be a something. It needs to be a doing or something, not just sort of, not just sort of sitting thinking about it.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot.
So whatever it is, it's an action step.
Yeah.
Basic thing.
Just to get out your mind, yeah, because I can relate to that. Just feeling so apathetic that you don't even really want to move. You're stuck in that mindset.
Yes.
And yeah, I can. Yeah, we can both relate to that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So if anyone wants to reach you, what's the best place? Is it to go to your website?
That's a good place to start. Yeah. joehoare.co.uk. That's a good way in. Weirdly, Steve, I also have a social media life as well.
Okay.
So sort of Facebook and Twitter and all that. I'm there as well. But the website is a good place to start.
Okay,
yes.
so your Twitter is at Joe Hoare, isn't it?
I think so. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, it is. Yeah, my Twitter is yes, and my Facebook I think is Joe Hoare 1.
Okay.
And I have a page which is Laughing Yogi.
Okay.
So yes. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Joe. I've really appreciated talking to you. It's been a lot of fun.
Lovely to talk to you too. Yes.